It's Saturday, December 13th, 2025, and I have 12 big stories for you. The leading story here is that, well, there's a new idea of having an economic zone in Donbass. I'm not sure exactly how that will work. I'm not sure that anyone else does either. So here, this is an article in CNN. The United States has suggested creating a free economic zone in parts of the eastern Donbass region from which Ukraine would withdraw under a negotiated peace with Russia. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said on Thursday. Zelensky said that the U.S. has discussed creating a free economic zone in parts of the Donbass from which Ukrainian troops would withdraw. The Russians refer to this territory under discussion as a demilitarized zone, he added. While this might break the diplomatic impasse, Zelensky said serious questions remain about who would manage the territory and how to ensure that troop withdrawals were fair and reciprocal, because the Russians are only talking about Ukrainians withdrawing, not about Russians withdrawing from anywhere. If someone withdraws from one side, as they want Ukrainians to do, why doesn't the other side of the war withdraw from the same distance in the other direction? He asked. Russia should also have to withdraw from land that it currently holds, not just Ukraine, he suggested. Okay, so let's look at the map here. This is the current line of contact, and I know my squiggles are pretty bad, but this is the disputed territory, the rest of Donetsk. So this in here is what we're talking about. The Russians want the Ukrainians to withdraw. So why shouldn't the Russians have to withdraw at a similar rate around there? Like, if you're going to have a demilitarized zone, wouldn't that make sense? Well, I mean, it makes sense to me. Trump doesn't know, although he was just asked. Let's listen to what Trump is being asked here in the White House.
Please. Thanks, Mr. President. Can you tell us how this free economic zone would work in the Donbass and land that the Russians took by force?
Well, I don't want to do that now. It's a very complex situation, but
he doesn't want to do that now because it's a complex situation.
It would work, and a lot of people want to see it work, and we're going to. All I want to do is I want to stop the death of 25,000 people a month. Go ahead.
Okay, that doesn't inspire confidence in me that he understands the entire context and understands how to make something like that work. But, I mean, here's another statement. It's complicated because you're essentially cutting up the land in some way.
I thought that we were very close with Russia to having a deal. I thought we were very close with Ukraine to having a deal. In fact, other than President Zelensky, his people loved the concept of the deal. You know, we threw something out.
This is the four-part deal.
That's just factually inaccurate. The Ukrainians do not love this deal. A majority of them do not want a deal like this.
Well, there's 4 or 5 different parts. It's, you know, a little bit complicated because you're cutting up land in a certain way. It's not the easiest thing. It's sort of like a complex real estate deal times 1,000, right?
I don't think it's like a complex real estate deal at all. And I don't know how it'll work, but I don't think that he knows how it'll work either. I think that's just the reality of where we are. Meanwhile, here's what the Russians are saying. They're talking about, well, do they need to have some kind of referendum or something? And here's Ushakov, Greg Terry voiced over.
Zelensky was commenting on the peace plan and its latest versions. He said the territorial issue is very complex, but not opposed to holding a referendum on the Donbass. Are we okay with this? Can we give it away or not?
Can they give away? Listen to what they're asking. Can they give away this territory that they don't actually control? Can they give it away? Well, you can't really give away something that you don't actually control. I mean, that's, I think, what the reality is. Here's finish.
Donbass is Russian. What about the part not liberated? The entire Donbass is Russian. So we don't need referendums? We have a constitution.
Yeah, they do have a constitution. So do the Ukrainians, who also say that Donbass is actually their territory. So, okay, so they're not budging an inch. I saw this the other day. Greg Terry actually showed it, and he sent me it, the picture just a few days back. And yeah, Mr. Trump, I'm from Donbass. Why should I give my home and my region to Russia? Donbass is Ukraine. It's a good question. Why should he give up his home? Okay, now this is a chart of how somebody posted on social media of how Trump sees the world. Here, this is the American sphere, and I think, you know, Okay, I'm putting this up, and you could say, well, Gerdes, this isn't really real news. Honestly, this is a pretty fair understanding of the way that the national security estimate sees at least the United States' role in the world. And, why should we tell Russia or China what to do? And if they want to have dominance in their sphere, they seem to be okay with that. Now, there is some pushback about that with Taiwan, like what are we going to do with this and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I think this is kind of the way that at least the Western Hemisphere here, the Americas, this is the way that Trump sees the world. And he's talking about this. Trump's preparing to bomb Venezuela. Ground strikes will be carried out across the country. We knocked out 96% of the drugs coming in by water, and we're starting by land. And by land, it's a lot easier. And 96%, I mean, like, how do you get that kind of figure unless you're just making it up? I mean, maybe he knows something I don't know, but it seems a little odd to me. Meanwhile, Putin is saying this. Let's listen.
To the people of the United States, for decades, Russia and the United States have stood on opposite sides of many disagreements. But history has shown us something important. When our two nations choose cooperation, the world becomes more stable, safer, and humanity moves forward faster.
Well, I mean, yeah, if you're fighting the Nazis, yes, but what he's doing is in a charm offensive, trying to get to a peace deal by saying, look, we're not a problem. We want to have peace.
Today, I want to remind everyone of a simple truth. Russia does not seek confrontation. We seek
Well, I mean, he was also saying that just before he invaded Ukraine.
mutual respect, equal dialogue, and genuine frameworks for cooperation. Our peoples have stood side by side during decisive moments in world history, and we can do so again. There are many areas where both Russians and Americans want peace: science, energy, security, space exploration, and the protection of the planet we all share. I believe the future will be more secure if we speak to one another rather than about one another.
So this is music to the Trump administration's ears. This is the kind of thing that they want to see reinforced and they want to talk more about. See, we can do deals here. Okay. Britt Hume, he is the chief political analyst from Fox News, says Russia doesn't want a business deal. It wants Ukraine, a building block of Mr. Putin's new sphere of control and victory that could humiliate the West and demonstrate his great power status. I think that's fair. I mean, that is exactly what he wants. Meanwhile, the U.S. caught Russian government-backed hackers attacking U.S. infrastructure. It's not like they're being friends. They damaged water systems in multiple states and forced a meatpacking plant to evacuate because of an ammonia leak. And all these kind of articles just came out. This is a summary of this that just came out in the last few days. Putin is trying to destroy us from within. If he's not held accountable, he will keep doing it. Never forget, Russia is not our friend, says Nikki Haley. Okay, now, when we're talking about the last couple of days, we're talking about Roblox and talking about SimCity may even be on the list for media or apps that Russia has banned. SimCity hasn't been yet, but it's in discussions. Well, here's a list of the platforms that must first eliminate as a venue for such discussions as they've now been banned or restricted in Russia. Now, this is a reply to Scott Ritter. Facebook, Instagram, X, Discord, Signal, LinkedIn, Viber, Line, YouTube, Telegram, TikTok, WhatsApp, FaceTime, Snapchat, Roblox. Okay, these are banned in Russia. Okay. Scott Ritter's point was, let's examine your list. Facebook, I used to communicate on there and then I was banned. Twitter, I used to communicate with numerous Russians, but I was banned for challenging the U.S.-EU position regarding the conflict in Ukraine. That's not the same as these things being entirely banned within a nation. If you're going to say that, there's free speech in Russia and these are all banned in Russia, that's problematic. Okay, Joe Wilson, the Republican senator or congressman from South Carolina. It's outrageous that the husband of the Georgia Dream regime, appointed ambassador to the U.S., is reportedly helping Russia evade U.S. sanctions meant to cripple Putin's war machine. The U.S. Treasury should look into this, and I look forward to following up. Unbelievable what they're willing to do. Russia's increasingly boastful of their capture of Italy's Meloni's government. Like, Meloni just kind of pulled back. Like, she used to be very vocally supportive of Ukraine, and in many ways she is, but on the frozen assets, she's really pulled back. Here, Political Europe, Italy is throwing its weight behind Belgium in opposing the EU's plan to send 210 billion of Russia's frozen state assets to Ukraine, according to international documents seen by Politico. Now, you know what my position was on that, so I'm not going to belabor it. But here's Kirill Dmitriev saying Italy says no to the EU's reckless plan to use/steal Russian reserves. This isn't just about Russia. It's about destroying trust in the global reserve system, the rule of law, and Europe's financial credibility. Like, he's right, but Russia just did that to like European powers and their planes that they stole, $2 billion worth of planes that were in Russia when the war broke out, that they just nationalized. Panicking EU bureaucrats will face consequences for illegal actions. It's so weird how he can say the right thing and it be for exactly the wrong reason. But when you want to look at the almost 300 billion in frozen Russian assets, it makes sense why Belgium is balking. They control 62% of it. They control 180 of those 300 almost frozen Russian assets. Germany 0.07%, France 6.6%, Luxembourg 3.5%, Japan 28.1%. And that's a pretty big shareholder. UK 26%, Canada 15%. The US only controls 4.3 or 1.5%, 4.3 billion euros worth or 1.5% of that whole. So that just to give you a picture of why Belgium is so concerned about this, because it all centers on Belgium, or primarily, and they are worried that they'll have some retribution on the other side of this. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic completed its 2024 ammunition commitment to Ukraine, delivering 1.8 million artillery shells through a multi-nation platform program that coordinates purchases from outside the EU, according to the former minister Peter Valia. Well, that's great. I mean, that they were able to do that and actually complete it. I mean, that's amazing. Ukraine would have been in some desperate shape without that kind of thing. I don't know what's going on forward, because I know some people are going to be asking that. So how that's going to continue, or what's going to continue moving forward, but awesome. So thank you to the Czech Republic. Meanwhile, Thailand is concerned by Trump's Truth Social post. It clarifies that there is no ceasefire with Cambodia. So remember, there are 8 wars that Trump has claimed to have concluded. Well, this one is now, we're back to 7 because this one's still going on. Some points don't reflect accurate understanding of the situation, says the Thai foreign minister. Here's the Truth Social post. I had a very good conversation this morning with the Prime Minister of Thailand. They have agreed to cease all shooting effective this evening and go back to the original peace accord made with me and with them with the help of the great Prime Minister of Malaysia. Both countries are ready for peace and continue to trade with the United States of America, but they don't agree to that. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Kim Jong-un awarded sappers who returned from Russia's Kursk region, or rather those who were lucky enough to return. According to North Korean propaganda, less than 3 months, sappers performed a miracle by clearing dangerous areas of mines. At the same time, Kim publicly, listen to this, publicly acknowledged the deaths of 9 servicemen who were posthumously awarded the title Hero of DPRK. 9. And so that was really interesting to me. Why just 9? It's not these guys, because it was publicly acknowledged. So here's the video for public consumption. So I don't know if he's saying that only 9 were killed in that process, but that's a long shot from where it was. Everyone was in tears. Both the relatives of the fallen and even the generals were in tears. So, okay, that's some weird stuff. Okay, potash. You probably didn't. Potash is you probably wouldn't think I was going to be talking about that. It's a trade name for water-soluble potassium-bearing minerals. Why are we talking about that? Well, because the U.S. is lifting sanctions on Belarusian potash. Why? Well, John Cole, President Trump's special envoy for Belarus, announced the decision following talks with Lukashenko. We're lifting sanctions and freeing prisoners. We are constantly talking to each other. Okay, so They're going to have a victory lap about all these prisoners that were released in Belarus. And what did Belarus get for it? Well, they got something for it. They got rewarded by having sanctions lifted on potash. It's Belarus's key export before sanctions. It generated billions of dollars in annual revenue. So now you're just putting billions of dollars of revenue back in Belarusian coffers. So that's where that is. Putin, Timothy Snyder says, Putin sits in Moscow claiming his armies have taken the town that the Ukrainian president is personally visiting. There are cowardly tyrants and there are courageous elected leaders, and it's good to know the difference. And that's right. That's exactly what it is. I mean, that was really gutsy on Zelensky's part. I mean, I pray he doesn't make a mistake and do something predictably gutsy in the future. Okay, last thing is my shout out to my Patreon colleague, Jeff, no last name. Thank you, Jeff. I appreciate your support. And we'll leave you with Darth Putin. This was posted yesterday about the oil platforms being attacked in the Caspian Sea the day before that. Darth Putin says, I am losing oil platforms in a land war to a country without a navy in a sea they don't even border. I remain a master strategist. All right, my friends, that's all I have. Thank you for the time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person who cares about Ukraine.